one. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Chi Cast by Tai Chi Fit International. I'm your host, Marcus Julian Carbo, here at TCWM Studios in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And it is Tuesday today, and I'm just going to catch all the things going on here online and then spread the love and joy across social media. So, as many of you that would like to join us can join us. And actually, it doesn't look like I have to. Looks like I outsmarted myself this morning, which is always a plus. So let's grab the URL link and start distributing it amongst our Tai Chi family out there in the world. And I gotta say today, I am wearing a ridiculous t-shirt. And when I bought this t-shirt, I totally bought this t-shirt as sort of a dad gag. I think we were getting ready to go see Into the Spider-Verse, I want to say. Either that or like Endgame or Captain Marvel, one or the other. It was a comic book movie that we went to go see. And we were at Hot Topic, and everybody got like, realistic comic book t-shirts. And then I saw Mr. Spider-Ham here, and I couldn't resist. Absolutely could not resist. Because me and Spider Ham have a lot in common. Mainly our hamminess, and yeah, and maybe our snouts. I don't know. What do you think? I don't know. He's a lot stronger than I am. He works out more, so it's perfectly fine. I'm not going to bring any attention to his snoot. Well, I guess pigs technically have snouts, right? All right. Well, today we've got for you two individuals of the Tai Chi for Veterans program, Tai Chi Fit instructors who are out there doing the great work of all of our instructors out there coast to coast. But today we have a little special bonus with our two instructors because, like me, both of them are veterans. So we'll be speaking with Clayton Crosley of Savannah, Georgia, and Wilson Arabi, Array. I don't know. He'll get me right when he gets it here from Denver, Colorado. So from all the way out from the Rockies to the Northeast to the Deep South, we are bringing in all of our amazing instructors to you through the ChiCast. And we're getting everything out right now. I think we have that there. I'm going to check in on that here as we're going through. But be that as it may, feel free to hop over to YouTube at Tai Chi with Veterans and like, share, subscribe, do that YouTube stuff and get it out there. Just about every day, we're bringing new content to you guys, great conversations, great thoughts, classes that you can take and rewatch. And all around, just having a good time doing the Tai Chi Fit thing. And the reason for this is, listen, and I wish I could take claim for what I'm about to say. I really can't. Uh, because this came directly from the man himself, from our fearless leader, David Dorian Ross, there in Huntington Beach, California, and with DDR, what we're trying to do, what we are doing with Tai Chi Fit, is we're changing the face of Tai Chi, right? Changing the face, making it more adoptable for everybody. What good is having a skill if you're not willing to share it, right? Like, seriously. When we think about Tai Chi, we think about the martial arts in general, or even yoga, or some of the other mindfulness practices, you tend to come across some almost elitist attitudes when you're um, approaching these disciplines. And I think one of the reasons for that is, one, well, the disciplines over time, if you're going to quote unquote master them, they're going to take a lot of time, and you're going to put a lot of effort. And I can see why, looking back, you may look at newcomers as almost interlopers. But the reality is, without new blood, you can't do anything, and that goes for any industry, from any discipline. These are conversations I have with my writing group about, make sure we're cultivating new blood as the senior members of our group are, publishing and going on tours and speaking and whatnot, and otherwise like perfecting their crafts. You need those new folks to come in, one, to give the room life, but or give the group life, but also so that what you have going evolves. I mean, it's just plain and simple. I mean, to think that all of the great minds of right now, Jesse Tsao, the Tai Chi Princess, David Dorian Ross, Bill Douglas, Yang Shuingming, Dr. Yang Shuingming, to think that they are following Zhang Seifang or Yang Luchang through, to the letter, as if their words were holy writ. No, not in the least. In fact, they're keeping it true to the essence of the art, but they are also evolving the art. The moment that you allow yourself to get trapped in tradition and just sort of stuck in your ways is antithetical to your Tai Chi practice, and you have to make sure that you don't fall into that trap of orthodoxy. That's true for life, quite frankly. You never want to get entrenched in your mind or in your body because, again, completely against our Tai Chi principles. And speaking of not being entrenched, speaking of being completely fluid and filled to the brim with Tai Chi principles, let me introduce to you from Savannah, Georgia, Mr. Clayton Crosley. How are you, Clayton?
I'm doing good. How are you, Marcus?
I am fantastic on this Tuesday morning. You are outside. I am jealous.
I am.
Very.
I am broadcasting from an Arnold Palmer golf course that's adjacent to a wellness center.
Oh yeah, cool. What has you there at the wellness center this morning?
But they've got all sorts of activities, but we do a class from 11 to 12 every day, 7 days a week. So it's really nice out here. It's a gated community, so the affluent people retire out here, and they want to be able to have a long life, so they come to class.
Very nice. So is that a pure Tai Chi class, a Qigong class, Tai Chi Fit class?
It's mixed, yeah. So I'll warm them up with some qigong, get the nine gates open, and get the dantian stirred around, and kind of get them to just connect to their breath and be a little more aware of their body. And then it takes about half an hour. Then we go in and we throw in the Tai Chi at them. And they're really enjoying it.
Cool. How long have you been teaching there?
I've been teaching here a year.
Oh, so a fairly what now? When you took over the class, did you take over the class, or is this a class that you created and cultivated?
They actually sought me out.
Okay.
Someone who goes to the wellness center also attends the local VA, and they knew that I was teaching at the VA. So it morphed out of doing volunteer service at the VA.
Yeah. And you've been a volunteer with the VA for 6 years, I believe.
6 years.
And how has that gone? How have you observed Tai Chi's influence on your betterment?
Well, the first thing is consistency for me. Same time, same day, every week. The veterans are very used to a regimented routine. Even if so my class is on Monday in Savannah and on Thursdays in Hinesville, but if a holiday falls on one of those 2 days, I say, hey, there's a holiday on Monday, but I'll be here on Tuesday. No one comes on Tuesday because the schedule is that important to them, keeping that same routine. Secondly is veterans are kind of a hard group to connect with, and when you start talking about energy and flow, they start to shake their head at you and they're very skeptical. So I put it in relatable terms. And I said, well, the body's filled with energy, because if it wasn't, then the military wouldn't spend so much money on buying night vision goggles, if we weren't radiating heat. And that's something that they can connect to, something they can identify with.
I like that.
I reel them in with the hook about that. And just keep them coming back because they start to feel a little bit better and a little bit better. And the thing is it's an incremental process. You know, I do have veterans that come in and they're what I call the revolving door. They come in once, they think one class is enough to, you know, for them to kind of reap some benefit from them, and you never see them again. But
Yeah.
the ones who continue to come, they see small gains that yield a large result.
Very, very true. Very, very true. Now you talked about um, being able to connect with the veterans on a
Yeah,
more tertiary level.
right.
So, and you gave us one example of that. Give us a few other examples of maybe esoteric ideas in Tai Chi that the general public just because they don't speak the language, they don't necessarily understand what we're talking about. But give it to us in some layman terms.
Um, Everything is connected to everything. And that every type of energy that resides out in the known universe also resides in the body. Um, so thermal, electric, magnetic, gravity, movement of our cells, everything vibrates, everything moves. And all of those same patterns that we see inside the body are the same patterns that we see out on larger scales. So starting at the smallest scale being the cellular level in our body, then working to our body, and then going outside of our body to the environment itself. I mean, we're all infinitely connected because we have all of these same energy patterns, not just energy patterns that are related to humans, but just the, you know, the different sorts of patterns, especially the spiraling left, spiraling right, bringing down, harnessing that energy that's around you is kind of the layman's terms that I want them to be able to connect with. Because when they just, even if they only make that connection briefly, it sticks with them. It's one of the things I found is showing them how to kind of be able to feel their chi and feel how this feels different than other types of exercise, especially because, you know, we're targeting not just the, you know, external resources of our muscles, tendons, and ligaments, but we're, you know, going a little deeper to the internal aspect of the movement of the energy within our body, the actual of invigorating the nervous system, invigorating the respiration system, invigorating circulation. All of these, you know, play a part in their overall wellness because when all these systems work well, then the body works better.
Right. Now, we the Tai Chi for Veterans program was designed through the Mission Act and through David Dorian Ross to bring Tai Chi in a way that was edible, if you will, or
Right.
absorbable by the veteran community very quickly. But as we know, this has waves that move further than just our veterans and moves out into the community. So, what are some of the observations that you've seen in your veterans that would easily translate to everyone else around the world?
Um, their improvement in their overall well-being and physical, mental, and emotional. I'm really going to harp on that emotional component of it because a lot of our veterans have these problems, and a lot of people, especially like right now and on the uncertain times we're in now, there's a whole lot of emotion out there, you know, fear-based, and so when you have that fear-based emotion, you tend to draw inward and bring that energy in. But doing Tai Chi and doing Qigong, it allows that energy to come out. And, you know, so that way you're not just keeping it in. And the emotional aspect of it is that when you're bottling it up, as we know, or putting it in a shoebox and stuffing it away in a closet that doesn't have a light bulb in it, that stuff always comes back to you.
Yeah.
And this is a way to process it through movement and breath and awareness.
Very true. Very true. Now, you have some traditional background. You have a lot of traditional background.
Yeah, I
and,
do.
and so you have like the idea of flow, that continuous movement that's sort of being lost in the ether, what you just described. We often have to train ourselves up to that in the traditional methods.
Right.
Have you found what are the differences that you found with Tai Chi Fit for your students and the routine in the Tai Chi for Veterans program?
So, when I look at the entire standing routine, one of the things that I discovered early on is you don't actually have to do them in that specific order. They're like Legos, and you can take one block and put it anywhere, and vice versa, which gives you a huge amount of versatility with it. And also, that keeps the program fresh. And over time, with the repetition, as we know, they develop that muscle memory. And so even though I may not be doing it in that same order that DDR does it in, they know when I say embrace the moon that we're going to start coming to this move, or the push pull. It resonates with them because and they're just able to do it really without hesitation, without like you said, any interruption, and just
Yeah.
having that connection and that to the movement and knowing how, oh, well, that's right, this is the way we do that. It allows them to achieve that state of flow. And I think that's really important. Really important also to know that, you can interchange the moves anywhere. So, it doesn't always look like the yellow Lego house with the red roof. It's got other different components, and it can have a mosaic quality. And I really like that term, a mosaic quality. Sorry, there's a lawnmower coming around the greens right now. I like the mosaic quality of it. Like you can fit the pieces in anywhere.
No, that's really good. And paint whatever picture that you want to paint.
Yeah.
What are the paintings that you see in your mind when you're in flow?
I don't know that I'm actually focused on any certain, imagery. It's just kind of effortless. It's
Sure.
we often describe the flow of chi in terms of water. So that's kind of what it feels like. It feels like a lot of the times it feels like that movement's cascading down. Sometimes it feels like that it's rising up, filling out the limbs and things like that. So there's just there's different qualities to it. It ebbs and it flows, and comes in, it goes out.
So, what was one of the first times that you felt that? Go back to your early days as a player. And
Oh
what
man,
first time you sort of slipped into that moment and we're like,
I was
yeah, this is it.
uh, I was probably just doing this movement, which is to bring my hands up and down, kind of an exaggerated version of sinking the chi.
Mhm.
And I was just doing it, and then I felt something rise up my spine, literally like a wave rising up my spine, and a subtle wave kind of just coming down through the front. And I noticed it, and I thought, well, that feels good. So I kept doing it. I kept doing it, and then that sensation continued. And even after I quit doing the move, that sensation still continued. Because even if you stop doing the move, that flow is still going on inside.
Right.
And that was probably my earliest identification of really kind of getting in the flow.
That sounds a lot like, is it, and if I get this wrong, I apologize to the entire Tai Chi community. Chen. I just had it on my mind and I just lost it.
Well,
In my
it's called the microcosmic orbit.
That's
So the energy running up the back is the Ren Mai meridian, and the
Mhm.
energy running the Du Mai meridian. The energy running down the front is the Ren Mai meridian. So one's the governing vessel, one's the conceptual vessel. So
Sure,
that was when
sure.
I very first started, and that's also it fits in really well with the Tai Chi concept because the sympathetic nervous system is the yang aspect of our physical being,
Sure.
and the parasympathetic, that relaxation effect that we often find that we get from doing class as well, is the yin aspect. And so those things are in concert with each other. They're complementary forces. They're not opposing forces.
Right.
And I think that's really important to understand as well. Because in, even on a deeper level, within a yang aspect, you find a yin component, and within a yin aspect, you find a yang component
Sure.
because that's what keeps them balanced.
You said something very important, I think, not just for life, not just for your body, but even in current events right now, which is that force, those oppositional forces fighting each other, versus
Yeah,
what you're saying is allowing those forces to work together. to find the
Yes.
commonalities where they fit into one another.
Yeah. One of my common pet peeves is people often will put up the Tai Chi symbol and they'll say good and evil, but that's
Yeah,
not a correct analogy of what the symbol represents because good and evil are in opposition to each other. And these forces are not in opposition to each other. They're in concert. They're complementary forces. One supports the other. The yang supports the yin. The yin supports the yang.
correct. Whereas good and evil, strength and weakness almost
Right.
tell us about an imbalance
It
versus
does.
a soft versus hard, a
It's
cold versus
it's
warm.
disharmony.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And how does that? Let's scale this up. How does
Oh,
that play out internally when you're doing your Tai Chi, both as a teacher and as a student?
Um, I just feel more balanced. You
Yeah.
know, I don't just in general. There's not like this rush to get things done, to hurry through things. There's enough time to just let them unfold and kind of just be observant, and take that in, and when they are out of harmony, the observation will yield that result to you because you'll see it. Be like, oh, okay, I was a little impatient. I probably should have been a bit more patient. So it comes not only from just the practice, but it comes from also a daily practice for me. I know that when I skip a day, I feel different.
Yeah. And now you skip, well, not so you do your Tai Chi in the morning. Let's forget a day that you skip. And you start to go through life, you leave your space that you've created to practice in, and then you walk out into the space that we all inhabit. How does that then translate into life, into just daily life? It doesn't have to be anything deep.
I think it gives you a good perspective on what you allow to come in
Mhm.
and what you also decide to put out.
Mm,
So, you know, and what you allow comes in, if you want to think of that as being kind of a barrier or a boundary, well, that's a good thing to have. Sometimes you need to keep some stuff out, and then sometimes you want that stuff to come in. And also, by doing that, it makes you aware of what you're projecting out as well. So, am I being kind in my thoughts, my words, my deeds? Am I being impatient, or, am I being humble or arrogant? It gives you an awareness, I think, to be a better person.
yeah. No, you're absolutely right. That self-awareness and that observational skill is paramount of when you're practicing Tai Chi, which then strengthens that in your mind when you're going through life, standing in the Starbucks line, wondering why the lady yelling at the door cashier. Uh, so, in that, and you've been on this journey for a long time, what are some of the
Yeah.
milestones that you've seen along the way? What are some of those milestones that stick out in your mind? Like, oh, at this point, I learned this. At this point, this made sense. And
So, we all take the time, I think, to learn the basic skills. And it took me a while to realize that the fundamentals are something that you just need to constantly practice and go back to that foundation. And always, building the house from the ground up, as so to speak, but always returning to that primordial beginning point and doing it regularly, because you can get way up here and miss some of that stuff that you were carrying around really close to you and doing quite well as part of your foundation. So for me, it's returning really basically to the basics on a frequent basis.
no, that's good. That's good. So now you're from down south. You're in the Savannah area.
I am
What is I mean, Savannah's gorgeous, number one of the top Halloween cities in the country. So I've heard.
the top St. Patrick's Day in the country.
Oh, is it?
We have about 500,000 people that show up to get drunk.
I'm sure Boston might have something to say about that.
Eh, Chicago might too, but it's a big one.
Yeah. St. Patty's can get a little wild here in Philadelphia too. I think that's just St. Patty's Day, quite frankly.
Right.
But you're down south, and
Yeah.
a lot of people would see that as I don't know, a shifting culture. You've traveled all over the country. I'm going to assume the world. You're also a vet, and have you noticed a difference between regions when it comes to Tai Chi, or do you see Tai Chi as more of a unifying factor?
It's creeping in the South, if you want to
Mm.
look at it that way, and it's certainly becoming more recognizable and accepted.
Okay.
And I think there are other parts of the country that are a little more open about embracing Tai Chi and stuff. The South might have a little bit of resistance, but there is a good core group, and I do find that when I put on a good class and people enjoy it and they feel better, then that word of mouth, and they tell their friends, and their friends come, and then they experience that same thing. I do see a lot of growth in this area, especially in the last 5 years, a whole lot. And I think that that growth, because you're bringing in more people, is a unifying aspect of Tai Chi.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So building community, making lives better. When are you
Yeah.
applying for sainthood?
Uh, I I think I would instantaneously combust. No, I just keep doing. I mean, just I just keep working with the veterans. I mean, even now we're doing Zoom classes and stuff, and it's something I get just as much as presenting the class and being there and being of service as they do for showing up. You know, they think that I'm the one who's only one who's giving something. They're giving something as well, which is a really special thing to experience, and it's really precious.
Wow. So what I get the sense of from you is that your classes are very sort of all encompassing, like being wrapped in a big warm blanket, just to be comfortable.
Yeah, yeah, and also you get a hot mug of cocoa and a cookie.
Did you really? Well, everybody go to Clayton's class because there's cookies and cocoa involved. That'll
Uh,
pack the seats right there.
yeah, that will. You know, veterans love all the free coffee and cookies that you see out. So if you bring cookies to your class, you will get more attendance.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You can eat the cookie guilt free as you burn off the calories.
That's true. That's true.
So, I'm going to ask you about Savannah because I am curious about this. My partner and I, we were looking for places to celebrate Halloween this year,
Right.
and we decided to go to the holy Mecca this year, which is Salem, Massachusetts. Uh,
Okay. Yeah.
but I am we like Savannah is on our list of places to go for Halloween.
It's it's a
Uh,
great place. We have the largest national historic district in the entire nation. You can walk it
mhm,
all, and there's a lot of haunted houses and stuff, and haunted tours you can do. And the food's fabulous, and you're 12 miles from the beach. You know, one block from the river,
mhm.
the Savannah River, and you can always go out to Wormslow Plantation, where if you remember Forrest Gump when he's running from the truck and his
Uh,
braces
uh,
fall off, that was filmed there. So
really?
yeah,
Huh.
run for and the cafe that he was in was here, and the church steeple. Yeah, so a lot of Forrest Gump, a lot of other film um, connections here in Savannah. But there's a lot to do, and there's a lot to do that actually doesn't cost very much too. So
Oh, that's really cool.
yeah,
So would you suggest coming to Savannah for a Halloween stint for 4 to 5 days?
wow, I didn't know you drank that much. Um, I guess that is about the average time for a bender. I would
We're-
absolutely recommend that you come to Savannah, either Halloween or an early spring when all the azaleas are blooming is a beautiful time too, which starts pretty early for us. So right around St. Patrick's Day is a great time too. They dye the river green, turn the fountain green,
Do they
and
really?
yeah, they do. And Savannah also you can open carry, and I'm talking about beverages, not firearms. So within the historic district, you can open carry your beverage into any other establishment.
I
And
found that to be a real thing in Georgia,
it
actually.
is a real thing. So the difference between Charleston and Savannah is Charleston, the first question is they ask you what church you go to. And in Savannah, they ask you, what do you drink?
Sounds like Savannah's more my type of town.
It is.
That is fantastic. Clayton, thank you so much for joining us
Yeah.
today on
Thank you.
the GCAT. Can you tell everybody where to find you online?
I'm on Twitter at Southern Sunrise Tai Chi. I'm on Facebook, Southern Sunrise Tai Chi, and YouTube, Southern Sunrise Tai Chi.
That's
Website coming soon.
website coming soon, he says. Yes, and hopefully a lot of this will be up there.
I hope so. Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
Good
Thank you,
stuff,
Marcus.
man. You got it, Clayton. Thank you so much for
Uh,
down in the deep south.
yeah.
Appreciate all your hard work in our program, and I look
Yeah.
forward to seeing you here again
Okay.
soon.
All right. See ya.
Be good. Have a great day.
All right.
All right, that was Clayton Crosley down there in Savannah, Georgia. If you didn't quite catch on to that, Savannah, Georgia is listed as one of the top 10 Halloween destinations in the United States. And it's right up there with New Orleans, with Salem, Sleepy Hollow, New York, Philly, San Diego, and this town in Minnesota. If any of my Minnesotians are out there, I just look it up, but I'm going to be lazy for a moment. There's like the home, the headquarters. Like we're not literally Halloween Town from Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas, but it is in fact like the home Halloween or something. It's some crazy town. So if you're out there in the center north of the country, Wisconsin, Dakotas, Minnesota, you know what I'm talking about. Check us out over there on Tai Chi with Veterans and let us know what that town was, or put it down in the comments wherever you're watching this. Let us know. And good morning, Jessica Lewis down there in Delaware, down there for me, up there from Savannah. Good morning, good morning. Yeah, she's telling me that she's only ever seen me in a black t-shirt, and today I'm hamming it up. So that's how the Marcus Julian do, as it were. Good stuff. So yeah, as you can tell, Halloween big on my mind. The partner and her and I were we booked a trip to Salem, Massachusetts, and we're big into the high holy month of spooky. Uh, if you go to my Tai Chi Facebook page, or even my personal Facebook page, and go back to October, things start to get weird right on October 1st. Last year we did 31 days of spooky, so every day I had to add something to my daily routine that was centered on Halloween, creating this transformation over the course of the month from regular old Tai Chi instructor on September 30th to October 1st wearing Halloween themed t-shirts instead of Tai Chi themed t-shirts. To then I started to paint my nails, and then they switched colors. First they were just black, and then they were black and orange, and then like the makeup started to do its thing. And so by the time we got to the high holy week of spooky, so I like to call it the week of Halloween, there was it was like full on makeup, costumes, wigs, you name it. Like I was all in, and it was so much fun, and at the same time so incredibly stressful. And I'll tell you why. So one of the things about Tai Chi and its progenitor Taoism are the idea that you can get stuck in the tribal mind, the zeitgeist of your age. We're all limited, right? You have the potential to be Superman or Wonder Woman, but you are limited by the time period that you live in. So think back to, if the Han Dynasty would have had the understanding of modern chemistry, where would they have taken their technology, right? Or the Tang Dynasty in the Middle Ages. What would Cicero have been able to do if he would have had a laptop and a word processor and hadn't been, writing on scrolls of papyri, right? Um, how more effective would the thoughts of Socrates, Confucius, Lao Tzu, Buddha, Plato, and Aristotle been if they would have had access to electricity? And so we don't know what humanity looks like going out. We just know what we have now. And so we maximize who we are in the time that we live. And one of the ways that the Taoists do that is setting up little disciplines for themselves, and they're stretched out over a period of time. So it could be a simple discipline. Like for 1 week, I'm going to meditate 5 minutes every day for a week. And you say, my word is law, and you meditate every day for 5 minutes every day that week. And you see how you feel at the end of the week. Now, it doesn't matter if you hate it, it doesn't matter if you love it. And what it does is it starts to build up your willpower in other places of your life. So in October of last year, my little challenge was, instead of doing a weekly challenge, I did a monthly challenge. And that challenge was 31 days of spooky. So every day in October, I had to do the spook or ratchet up the spook so that by the end, I was nigh recognizable. Right. So that was a fun, very, very fun exercise that I had going there. And in doing all that, now when we got close to Halloween, it wasn't a big deal because in Philly is also one of the top 10 Halloween towns. That's why we spent last year, most of Halloween last year in Philadelphia. Um, by then, the Halloween parties have begun. They start. I think the Halloween bar opens right at the beginning of the month. The and we like all the costume parties start happening probably that second weekend of October, and they have lots of bar crawls, and you'll tour around the city, and you'll see things that you wouldn't normally see on your daily walk necessarily. You may see one or two of these things, maybe even three, but when it has you going to maybe 6 to 10 different locations, you're going to end up at old favorites and new haunts. See what I did there? So when we were going around Philly, we basically were just kind of partying all the way through, and by party I mean celebrating the ideas of Halloween, that idea of letting go. But at the beginning of October, completely different ball of wax because now all of a sudden, especially in the early stages of the transformation, I was just the guy in makeup, right? And that created some tension as I live in a relatively conservative part of the country, right? Or a relatively conservative part of the city. And now I am known for my over the topness, which is all fine, well, and good. But even that put people off. And part of the discipline is to act as if nothing's wrong, nothing's different. You just move on. So let's say you work at a bank, you show up in a chicken costume, and you get in your seat and you just start cashing checks. And if anybody asks, why are you wearing a chicken costume? You just say, what chicken costume? Or you spend your whole day walking backwards, right? Everywhere you go. And somebody says, well, why are you walking backwards all day? And you say, I like to see where I've been. Or what do you do every morning? You get up and you go to the one side of the garden and you pick up 12 stones, and one stone at a time. You pick it up, you Tai Chi walk all the way across the yard, you place it down in a little ceremony, you thank it, and then you Tai Chi walk all the way back and you pick up another stone. Every day at 6:01 in the morning, you pick up all 12 stones and you bring them across the yard or the room or the books or whatever. You bring them across the room, you do your Tai Chi walk, you thank them, and then you set them back up where you brought them for. And it should take you 15, 20 minutes to do it. And your brain is going to say, what are we doing? This is dumb. And you're going to say, shut up, brain. I'm getting stoned. And so what these little disciplines do is they absolutely help you to really batter down the ego and get to a point where you start to become comfortable with yourself, It's not to say that you wear a chicken suit or you dress up like it's Halloween every day, but it is to say that you get more comfortable in your own skin as you do these little disciplines. And in doing that, but not everybody, because here's the thing, your discipline is internal. Once your disciplines start to become external, they start to become top down. And top down, as we're seeing in the news, top down does nothing, does absolutely nothing. All right. And I'll give you an example. And I'm going to call this right now. Hear me now, quote me later. We've heard what the president has said. We've heard what many governors have said, many pundits and other politicians are talking about bringing in the National Guard and the military and all those sorts of things. And at first, it's going to be effective. You're going to stop some of the looting. But that is going to be seen as an oppressive move. And so while the looters may be curbed, the people that are there for the reasons, the true believers, are going to see this as an infraction on their rights. Now, I'm just calling balls and strikes here. I'm not taking sides. I'm just calling balls and strikes. And what will then happen is leaders out of this movement will start to rise. This is what we saw in the civil rights movement, right? And they will start to oppose. But now it's not looters anymore. It becomes an organized group. And if you get the right organizers, then you have a serious clash. Versus what we saw in Miami, and also what we've seen in several cities, Philadelphia sort of being one of them, where either the police have been completely hands off and just sort of tried to contain it to a localized area, or in Miami where the cops actually walked with the protesters and that diffused the situation. That is the power of Tai Chi, the soft overcoming the hard. What we need out of our leaders right now, and this is very important for everyone, parents, supervisors, managers, CEOs, leaders across the board. Do not, never, ever, ever do just to prove you're stronger, because that's really the point of those overwhelming shows of force, the shock and awe, the super hard, is to dominate your will over people. But as we've seen over all of history, that never works. It's only when we come to the table and listen to one another and actually find some common ground that ultimately peace can be had. And if you get actors at the table that don't have any common ground, then you have the wrong actors at that table, and it's time for them to go, and you get new people in. That's the important part there. So as I was walking around, getting close to full spook, the there was abuses that went on. There was abuses, but I had to just sort of eat them. It's nothing like sitting at the Eagles game and getting questioned about why my nails are painted and I'm wearing eyeshadow. Now, and the funny thing about that is, nails painted, eyeshadow, those were questionable things. Even Judy kind of made fun of me for that at one of the webinar, the Hangout last year in October. But here's the thing. When the contacts went in, it was a whole different ball of wax. Everybody was just creeped out. And it was like, now we're in full spook mode. So, but it's about getting through those transitions, getting through those uncomfortable periods where people are getting used to what's going on. And that includes you. That macro micro can be thrown to the micro, the internal, where you have to get used to and just weather the uncomfortable moments of your growth. That's really what it comes down to, right? As you're going through your Tai Chi journey, as you're going through your own personal journey, uh, if you can embrace the growth, if you can embrace the discomfort, and yell at the clouds, "No, I am the storm," then you are going to be just fine. You're going to be just fine. Now, that doesn't mean there's not going to be conflict. It doesn't mean that those uncomfortable growth periods aren't, in fact, uncomfortable. They are. But if you're walking around with your saffron robes and you're clicking your bell and you're on to everybody in life and everybody is seeing your spirituality and your zen on display, I hate to tell you, but you're not growing in that moment. You aren't. When you are suffering, when depression is beating on your door, when fatigue is beating on your door, when you recognize that you have to bow out of public life so that you can sit, have a good sit with you, to move internally with you, to get back in touch with the ground, with the earth, with the air, with the water, with fire, with the wind. When you do that, when you're at your lowest, but you keep your practice and you sharpen your tools and you really make it work. And then you come out the other end feeling ready to put those saffron robes and those bells and start oming again. That's when you're growing. It is in those difficult periods, it's when it's hard, that you are becoming the best, most authentic you. Because in the mind of clutter that we have, it's easy to get lost. Easy to get lost and distracted. But if you could sit with that mind of clutter, and you're not there to organize it, no, that's not what the point of meditation is or your Tai Chi is. Your point is just to observe it and recognize that none of it matters. That all the stress is, but that's hard to do. That is hard to do because when you're going in your daily life, you are told that these things matter. And this actually brings me back to the Tai Chi for Veterans program, because one of the misconceptions about veterans is that their orneriness, their bad attitude, and all that kind of thing just doesn't mesh up with the civilian world. And there's truth to that because a lot of the civilian world just doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. You know, here in the military, it's very structured, and you get the feeling that you're a part of a structure. When you're cast back out into the civilian world, it's all chaos. It's all chaos. Those structures are completely gone. And what you see is people just kind of doing and not really growing, right? And that doesn't help the vets because life turns into one big countdown. There's the big countdown, cradle to grave. And then there's all these little countdowns that happen along the way. I completely forgot my point, so I'm just going to go down another trail until that street intersects with where I was going. So while you're and I just lost my thought again. Oh yeah, so while you're walking through life it just becomes a bunch of countdowns, right? You when you go to preschool or kindergarten, your countdown is a little different. Your ideas of time and abstractness and all that are a little whatever. But very quickly, once you get in elementary school, every day starts to become a countdown from the time you get there to the time the final bell rings. That's sort of what you do. And you do that 5 days a week. And then on the weekends, it's one big countdown until Monday. All right. And then you have these macro countdowns, your semesters, your years of promotion, right? First, second, third grade, and so on. And then you have sort of these micro countdowns of when you get out of elementary school, out of middle school, out of high school. Then, assuming you go to college, then it really is countdown. A countdown to the next assignment, a countdown to the next semester, a countdown to the next year, countdown to the next bill. Whether you go to college or not, if you go into the military, it's a countdown till when basic's over, then when AIT is over, then when your duty station time is up, or your deployment's over, or your contract is over. But everything's just a ticking countdown. And so after a while in the military, when you get out, you're kind of wanting to walk away from that countdown. But the civilian world does not allow that. In fact, the civilian world actually ushers everybody in, and your countdowns are awful. They're awful. It's payday and bill day. That's really it. Unless you really enjoy your job, unless you really enjoy what you're doing, and you have found true purpose in your life that soaks up a good portion of your day, you're just it's all just a countdown. You're always living in the future. And that brings us back to my original point, where the things that afflict veterans afflict all of us. They just afflict the veterans in a population where we can watch it, and it's probably more acute, right? I always like to say that the difference between a veteran and a civilian is like the difference between someone from Seattle and someone from New York, right? Um, the civilian being from Seattle, it's a city. It celebrates Christmas. It speaks English. You know, it's basically from a 50,000 foot view, pretty much the same as New York culturally. The difference being the New Yorker probably grumpy and has seen some things that the Seattle folks might not believe. Right? And when you look at it from that terminology, then you understand that both sides, both afflictions, or both share the same afflictions. It's just a matter of degree. That's sort of the world we live in right now, where everything's a countdown, everything's pushing toward the future. We're never allowed to just relax in the moment. And the reason that the things that make you happy, it's pretty simple. When you enjoy what you're doing and you're going pale male, full passion, what are you getting? Well, you're getting the moment. And that's why time flies while you're having fun, because you're just in the moment at that point. You're not worried about the future. You're not worried about the past. Think of it like being on a roller coaster. On a roller coaster, you're clicking up, and where is your mind? Where is your mind? Your mind is in the drop, generally speaking, right? You're waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting with anticipation to the moment that your car goes over the ledge and whoo, you go down. And in doing that, that's the scariest moment. Now, once it drops, you're completely in the moment, right? Because usually you're screaming or enjoying or whatever, and the ride is underway, and there's no time to project forward on a good roller coaster. On a good roller coaster, and assuming you have a good seat on that roller coaster. But it's that climb, and that climb is where we generally are. Half the time the climbs for some of these bigger coasters take longer than the coaster itself actually plays out. But that's the same idea. And so in regular life, it's always the climb. We're always in the climb. We're always worried about the next deadline. We're always worried about the next email. Always worried about the next meeting, and never really just allowed to just be, to just be. My hope out of this quarantine is that people start to learn this. A hope that is very quickly being dashed by current events. However, improvement, whether it's for you or for anyone else, that's an internal discipline. Finding your peace, finding your moment. And so, you, by changing you, you start to change the world. That's the reality, because that's how this is going to happen. There's never going to be this top down moment where somebody slams their fist and humanity wakes up. No, that's not going to happen. It's going to be a swell and a swell that we're want. These are how these things work. Think about the difference between what's going on in the world now and what was going on in the world in 2016, if we remember, and again, I'm just calling spades spades, when the president took the oath of office, there were protests and there were tons of stuff that was going on. There was this acuteness that was happening in that moment. And what happened? It died. It died relatively quickly. But that swell, that undertone, that kept boiling. That kept rising until, because it was all bottled up, it completely blew its lid. When you hold your breath, that's what happens. And that's why it's important let the soft overcome the hard in that way. Because when you really sit to think about it, when you become content with where you are, with who you are, it is then that you can clearly see where and what needs to be improved. If you're not self aware, if you're not taking inventory of you, what ultimately ends up happening is you look for what needs to be fixed in someone else. You aspire to an idea. You project other people's values instead of discovering your own. Now, it's very, very likely that you will find like values in folks. One of the reasons that I was so attracted to Tai Chi and to Taoism is it just naturally fits my personality. It's kind of amazing. It's like it was made for me. But is it? No, I've just adopted it and adopted it in such a way that it does fit who I am and it allows me to be the type of me that I want to be. Now, I'm not perfect at it. I certainly slip. And yesterday, I was having a heck of a day, and I had to discipline myself to just take a break, middle of the day, do 20 minutes of meditation, just sit and get back in touch with me, because the rest of everything was going a little nutty. But it takes that self-reflection. It takes that little bit of work to say, you know what, there's plenty of time to get stuff done. Even though the words that were coming out of my mouth at that moment were like, I got to do this, I got to do that, and this is never going to get done. I'm going to be working until goddamn forever. And but having that moment of understanding that, you know what, I'm just going to sit in a sacred little chair, just right behind our screen here. I'm going to wrap myself up in a blanket and let the cat sit on my lap while I meditate. Woo! Excuse me. Whoa. Oh, goodness. That caught up. I don't know. Sneezing a symptom? Not sure these days. I need to get an update from the CDC. That said, so that's self-awareness right there. Number one is about recognizing when it's time to do something. The Tao Te Ching talks about how the master knows their job, they do it, and they move on, which sounds simple enough, but we don't always do that. Sometimes we know we need to do something, and we just don't, and we fight it, and we resist it. It happens all the time, right? You want to get your day started, but you don't necessarily have to be anywhere. You just have this sort of nagging thing to get your day started, but you push off making breakfast. You push off getting a shower. You push off getting dressed or just starting whatever activity it was that you wanted to do. You just push it off. Or like you need to go to bed and you just keep pushing it off because you're going to watch another video, you're going to watch another movie, or you just want to watch another 10 minutes or so. And then all of a sudden it's 1 in the morning and you're like, oh God, I got to get up. Right. Whereas if you would have just listened to that voice in the very beginning 4 hours ago, you would have been in bed and you would have got your night's sleep. So it's not that you don't know. It's that you have to condition yourself to listening to that inner voice, which then allows that voice to get a lot stronger. It's no different than your Tai Chi. You have to get used in Tai Chi to being rooted. of moving in such a way that you know you're balanced instead of being balanced. You have to get used to that feeling of relaxation, of that song feeling, that sinking feeling, to know when you're there, to know the difference between the two. And the funny thing about it is, once you have it and you maintain it, you never lose it. That stays there. And what you'll find is that you're unable. It's one of those things where, like, you'll hear people, "Do you know too much to teach a beginner?" And the truth is, yeah, there's a certain point in one's career where it becomes increasingly difficult to teach someone that knows nothing, because you fall out of connection with those early days. It takes a while, but it happens. And that's why it's so important to keep injecting new blood. We were just talking about this in the very beginning. Keep injecting new blood into your discipline, because your students, your newbies, will know exactly what it's like to be newbies, and they'll be able to help the newer people right then and there. That's why in a lot of the classes, the master will teach the experts, and the training students, the in studio students, will be the ones teaching the beginners. One, they just need the time of practice with their folks, but also because you don't want to lose that connection between the beginner and the teacher. You really don't. Some people who will remain nameless, that's kind of responsible for this, David Dorian Ross, actually just kind of never lose that. But that is the joy, that is the fun of the Tai Chi Fit method, which is the allowance of the beginner to just play along, have fun, and learn without learning, so you can teach without teaching. Now, if that sounds fun to you and you've enjoyed my stream of consciousness here this morning, as we await our final guest, I hope that phone call wasn't from him, but that was a PA number. So I'm going to guess. Actually, it was a Philly number. I'm going to guess it was a bot call. That said, if you want to join the Tai Chi Fit family, you can go one of two ways. You can go to taichifit.net and join the Flow subscription, which will allow you access to the entire library of David Dorian Ross, which is extensive to say the least, and also webinars, hangouts. We're going to be doing giveaways and contests here shortly. Uh, there's plenty of stuff for you to really enrich and deepen your Tai Chi practice. On the other hand, you can also go to taichifit.net and head over to the instructor side of things. And the instructor side of things, again, you can move to the subscription model, where, depending on the tier that you select, will give you a certain level of support in your instructor journey, but will also teach you how to teach without teaching, which is counterintuitive, I know, but it actually works, and it is actually at the center, very center of the Tao, right? Absolutely at the center of the Tao. Now I'll take a quick break here with my Tai Chi mug, so I can take a sip of my tea, and I'm going to check in on our next guest. Make sure they're all right. Just make sure they're all right. This is one of the things with the live streams, and while and why the radio has it good, because they don't take commercial breaks. So here we go. I guess I could sort of do something like that, right? I could just use OBS and do a little some cheesy traditional Chinese music. There's good traditional Chinese music out there, and then there is the really cheesy stuff. And you're like, whoa, what am I listening to? All right. So, where are we? Where are we? Well, it is, let's see what kind of day it is today. It is National Day. And we're just going to look at that up. National Day. Let's see what's out there for us. This kind of scares me. National Day, celebrate count. National Day is a day on which celebrations mark the nation. No, 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 that's not what I want. Let's just say today. All right. I don't have to do that because our next guest is on the way. So once he pops in, we'll be ready to rock, ready to roll. What holiday is today? Let's see what holiday is. Isabel Province Day, the Solomon Islands, National Rotisserie Chicken Day. Okay, all right. I'd say go to Boston Market, but it is also National Rocky Road Day, National Bubba Day. Is it, if that is your name Bubba, or is it like that old bubble gum? What is it? National Leave the Office Early Day. Oh my. Oh my. National Leave the Office Early Day. Somebody tell DDR. Somebody tell DDR. You know what? I'm going to do that right now, right here, live on the Gcast. Uh, we're going to send DDR a message from the proletariat as we wait for Wilson to pop in on us. Well, my app doesn't want to work. This is the joys of live streaming. We went from deep intellectual banter to not being know how to operate an app. So you know what? Something's got to balance out some way. All right. See, it's National Leave the Office Early Day. Maybe. It doesn't want to. Technical difficulties. All right. It's National Leave the Office Early Day. I can spell. I do the writing. I do the writing. You know, it's funny enough. I was writing a historical fiction Halloween story. I have a thing. I have a problem. I know. I can't find a meeting. Okay, leave me alone. So I was, and this was actually a part of a group project that my writers group was doing, and it was set in Savannah in the year 1739, I believe, 1738 or 1739. And it was a creepy tale. There is something about the colonial period in the United States that is, in every sense of the word, horrific. Right? Think about all the stories that we have that came out of that time period, and they're all scary. All of them. There's something off-putting about that time period. It's wrapped in mystery and superstition and dirt. Very, very dirty. I mentioned earlier that we went up to Sleepy Hollow 2 Halloweens ago. And Sleepy Hollow used to be known as, I believe, North Terrytown, Tullytown, is about a half hour north of New York City, which back in a half hour by today's standards. But it was a day trip that people would take out of the city. There's a huge cemetery that's there, and Sleepy Hollow, for those that you don't know, is where Washington Irving set his tale, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, with the Headless Horseman and Ichabod Crane and all that kind of thing. And the fun part of Sleepy Hollow is all the spook, of course, for me. But and it's very modern now. It's lost a lot of that colonial charm. But in the Northeast and on the East Coast, for those of you that are further out west, there is that old style colonial, like cobblestone streets, and everything looks kind of old. Like there's a modernity to New York, and other than maybe New York, because New York is constantly evolving. So Um, New York probably looks the most modern out of all the East Coast cities. If I'm just ballparking, it's between New York and DC, but DC, because it's the seat of government, has those old style looking buildings, those classical, that classical architecture. So it automatically kind of looks a little older. But but like Savannah, Charleston, Charlotte, like all these cities were a part of King's Highway back in the colonial days, and so we set up the story to take place there in Savannah. And it's 1738, and our protagonist is a runaway slave, actually, that was a part of a rebellion, the Stono Rebellion. And what they're trying to do is get out of Georgia into La Florida, where the Spanish were still a part, were still in control of Florida. And the Spanish, in order to get under the skin of the English, were saying that if slaves could get out of the colonies and get to Florida, they would have their freedom. And this is a different time. This is a very different time because this is before the slave acts that would prevent literacy and autonomy and all this. A lot of the slaves in the colonies at that time were fresh, like they remembered where they came from. They were literate. They were soldiers who had been on the losing side of the Civil War in the Kingdom of Congo back then. It was, and this made for some very interesting character dynamic, right? Because you had sort of your English tropey characters because we know who they are. We've seen them in 1,000 movies at this point. The redcoats, the colonial, the imperialist sort of British military men. But we often don't see, other than in maybe 12 Days a Slave, where somebody was, um, taken, I don't know if mistake would be the word, but taken wrongly um, by the South. So, with that said, speaking of not the South, we're going to go all the way out to the Rockies there in Denver, Colorado, to meet the most handsome man in Tai Chi Fit, Wilson Araby. How are you, brother?
I'm doing pretty good, Marcus. How are you?
I am fantastic. I'm fantastic this Tuesday morning. It's sunny and a little hazy here in Philly. How is it out there in Denver?
Well, we're getting glorious days right now. Mornings are cloudless skies, beautiful sunshine. The evenings, we're gathering up some storm clouds and we're getting a little rain, but hey, I've never complained about rain.
It's that time of year, isn't it? The thunderstorms are going to be coming and all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I like the rain. What are your thoughts on the rain?
Oh, the rain is it's kind of like Tai Chi, you know. It's first there's a cloud, and then the rain comes down, watering everything, filling the rivers, the streams, the oceans, and then evaporates, comes back up, makes a cloud, and then raining back down.
Does it all?
So it's really a Tai Chi, you know.
There it is. All right. Good night, everybody. Wilson has dropped the mic.
Well, great. It's good. It's good to see you, Marcus, and thank you for doing this, and thank you for having me on to visit with you and talk a little bit about life, about Tai Chi, and about the balance that we're all seeking. So, gratitude to you.
Oh, you're more than welcome, brother. More than welcome. I'm glad to have you. You're one of the folks that I have met in this journey that I never would have met without it. And it makes the journey so valuable, um, that to know that there are guides like you on this path. So Give it up to yourself as well. All right.
Well, it is interesting how we do meet people, and how much serendipity plays into our lives. But then you can ask yourself the question: is it serendipity at all? You know, is what happens what is supposed to happen? And I think there's something in that.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. The idea that if you put it out into the universe, it will manifest. And I think there's a psychological component to that. When you say I want X car, you start to see X car everywhere. And you'll start to budget for X car, and you'll start to see where you can make sacrifices. And suddenly, what seems like serendipity, oh, I finally purchased the car, actually it was a lot of hard work and you just finding the best directions on how to get where you got. And I feel like it does feel very serendipitous, like you said, that I was able to meet someone like you, and all the way, 3 time zones away, in a very rocky part of the country, making our Appalachian mountains look very, very tiny. Although I did think about you the other day. I was watching a geological documentary, and it was talking about Pangea and when Pangea came together, and that the Appalachians, when they were formed, were taller than the Himalayas are now. So we were bigger than you at one point.
Well, bigger isn't always better,
There
and
you
neither is older. But on a recent trip to North Carolina, I spent some time with my brother, and we were up in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and lots of geology up there. Here out in the West, the geology is just there. It's in front of you. You confront it all of the time.
sure.
In the East, it's been smoothed out. It's been covered up. But the Appalachians are, if not the oldest, some of the oldest rocks in the earth, in the
Yeah.
world. It's incredible, and when you stop and think about that they've been there for that long, and as you say, so big at one time, and then with the rain and the
Yep.
wind and the dust, all of that's being worn down and shaped and molded, and um, it's an amazing universe, Marcus. It's an amazing universe.
That it is, and we get to fly around in it, which is pretty cool.
Well, I think I've told you before my thoughts about how we are connected to the universe. And if you're a fan of Neil deGrasse Tyson, he talks
Oh yeah.
about this all the time. How we are stardust.
Hmm.
If you go down deep enough into what we're made of, aside from the fact that there's some energy, some force that causes us to move, when you get down to those tiniest bits, we're stardust.
Yeah.
And I have this image that comes to me from time to time when you think about the Big Bang and the expanding universe and the movement of all of that matter and energy out, and then think about where you are in that whole line.
Yeah.
And we're basically infused with both the matter and the energy.
Yep.
And it's quite a headful, to think about going all the way back, that connection to the singularity
Yeah.
and where we fit into that. Whew.
Oh yeah. I mean, but it can go one of two ways for people. At least this is my observation. You have people that embrace that idea, like I am as old as the universe, and I will go on till the end of it, just not in the form I exist in now. And then you have other people that are terrified of this idea.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of
Uh,
it is about what we're comfortable with, what we're actually comfortable with. But just to put a point on it, the thing that we do with Tai Chi and Qigong, when you think about that movement of matter and energy, we really are in that connective web, and we're working with, we're playing with, we're discovering, we're cultivating. We actually have our hands on that energy. And
Mhm.
that is what we are, that is what we do. Whether we're leading other people or if we're participating and following, and we should do both. You know, we should fit in, you know, on both sides. It's an enriching and fulfilling perspective.
Absolutely. I know, and I know you know this, when you are doing your Tai Chi outside, that is the most unifying moment, I think, of my day, generally speaking, when you can get into a good spot where either you have the mountains or the water or both, because some of us are lucky, right? You've got the grass underneath. I don't know about you, but I actually, in the warmer months, I will do my Tai Chi barefoot. Granted, there's parks around here where you can do that, and parks that you would not want to do that in. But I will do it barefoot because you just get that sense of feeling with the ground. You really get a sense of where your balance is, where your foot placement is, and the ground, the earth is it's inviting, it's warm. You've got the grass on your feet, and you just feel connected. And as you move with the river, as you move with the wind, you realize how little difference you have with everything, that you are just one with everything. Tell us some things. Tell us some times that you've had these moments of clarity, if you will, in your Tai Chi journey.
Well, you know, the interesting thing about the Tai Chi journey, that's an interesting approach, you know, to look at it. If I think back, you know, to the path, you know, that I've taken, and there are two aspects to it, right? One is the what, where, when type of thing. You know, I started here and I had an aspiration at this time, and you know, it led me, you know, to this. So for myself, I have a good friend who does Tai Chi, and for years I was in awe and admiration of his Tai Chi, and I never took that step. I never went the extra distance. There was always work and travel and family, and you know, our lives are filled. And so finally, I had the opportunity to take a karate class with my son, and we did that for about a year together, and you know, went through the progression and the belts, and it was fun. And you know, my son was, I think, 8 or 9 at the time, and like kids will do, he lost interest, and so I kept going to class and realized that, hey, karate's great, but I want to do Tai Chi.
Mm-hmm.
So I sought out, and I found a wonderful master in Houston, where I was living at the time, who taught the 108 form Chin style, and so that's what I started with, and I did that for 6 months, 6 or 8 months, and realized that this wasn't what I was looking for. And serendipitously, if you will, my current teacher started giving a class where I was working, and his Tai Chi class was oriented around health and well-being. And I said, that's what I'm looking for. That's what I want. I mean, martial arts are great, great physical activity. You know, Kung Fu is amazing to watch, but I'm not going to become a Kung Fu master.
No.
But I can't, I don't think so. I would have to give up some things in order to do that. But I do want to become adept at Tai Chi. And as I began taking this class, and I met his teacher, who became another of my teachers, Roger Yankee, with the IIQTC, the Institute of Integral Qigong and Tai Chi, and began to get into, you know, more deeply, what is the connection of Tai Chi and Qigong to health? You know, what does that mean? And it's been a very enlightening journey for me to begin to understand, and let's go back to connectivity, because we're talking about that this morning. But what is the connection between the movements that we make, the lives that we live, and our health and well-being?
Yep.
And so that's where I'm coming from. So I love to be able to do a kata and do it flawlessly, or as flawlessly as I can at that given moment. But ultimately, the most important thing is to be moving, breathing, feeling the energy, feel the movement of energy through the body as we walk through these time-tested and time-honored movements and traditions. And at the end of it, feel alive and rejuvenated. So that's a little bit, of my journey and how I got here, and a little bit about the importance of Tai Chi to me, awakening my existence.
Very, very nice. Now you're sharing this joy. Now you are actually putting it out into the ether, giving of yourself. How has that changed things for you?
Well, we all know the old adage, the best way to learn something is to teach it. And in fact, I took that to heart. My teacher, Henderson Smith, in Houston, Texas, who is he's a wonderful Tai Chi guy. And, working with Henderson has been a journey and a discovery, and getting deeper with a little greater understanding, and moving from making the 1 foot journey. We've all heard about the 1 foot journey, going from here to here.
Yeah.
One of the most difficult journeys in the world, moving from the head to the heart. And so Tai Chi plays a role in that for me. And I actually worked toward my certification just to improve my Tai Chi. I really didn't have an intention of teaching Tai Chi. My intention was just to be better at it. So in some strange way, we know how the universe works. Having worked on improving, my individual practice has put me in a position where now I can share with other people. And there is little that is more gratifying than having people who maybe have heard of Tai Chi, or maybe took a class, or maybe they've done Qigong or even yoga or whatever, to come into a class, to leave everything outside the room, to focus on their moment, on their space, where they are, move, breathe for 30, 45 minutes, an hour, and come out of that feeling better.
Yeah.
And my whole approach to teaching Tai Chi is, people just want to feel good. People want to feel better. That's why we exercise to a great degree. That's why we try this and try that. And, ultimately, it's to feel good. So if after a period, 10 minutes, or an hour of moving and breathing and actually feeling better, and actually knowing where that comes from. That's one of the big reasons I teach.
That is awesome. I love having you on, because you're like the Socrates of Tai Chi.
Boy, you
break
keep
things down. I'm like, no, don't end, Wilson. Keep talking.
you keep putting me up on that pedestal. I'm gonna fall, Marcus. I'm gonna fall. So don't. I'm the grasshopper. I'm the grasshopper.
That's right. Snatch that humility right off the altar. That is good stuff. So what when you look at, because as you know, Tai Chi automatically applies to every aspect of life. It's not just in class, but what you learn in class, you end up taking away with you whether you know it or not. Like that's one of the sneaky parts of Tai Chi. It's like, oh yeah, we're here, maybe we break a sweat, we're feeling good, we're breathing, I feel relaxed at the end, but eventually that atmosphere of the class continues to penetrate the rest of your life further and further, deeper and deeper, until you're like us and this is just what you do all the time. So how do you feel about how a Tai Chi instructor, how someone who's walking the same path as you can utilize what they know to navigate the world we find ourselves in now? We're talking the world of quarantine, the world of unrest, the world of uncertainty. And I'm just going to leave that there.
Well, I love that question. I really love that question because, um, we might think that we have to struggle
Mm-hmm.
to find where does Tai Chi fit into my life. Um, but I think one of the best examples is Tai Chi walking. I love to teach Tai Chi walking. Um, when we're moving through this world that we live in, we're moving so fast that we really don't walk properly. It's more that we're trying to get somewhere, and so we're leaning forward and we're moving our feet in order to keep from falling on our face. And the thing I love about Tai Chi walking is that it's an opportunity to take something that we do every day, all day long, from the time we get up, and then some of us even do it while we're sleeping. But we're walking, but are we really walking? And if we take the principles of Tai Chi and just bring it down to that one aspect, just the Tai Chi walking. And the way I teach Tai Chi walking is I get people to focus on four things. So for me, there are four things about balance, about physical balance. One is the actual physical feeling of balance, feeling the weight first on one side, feeling the weight then on the other side, and feeling that motion. And I borrowed from you something that I use all the time. It's a bit of a paraphrase, but I like to have people move like water at the speed of breath.
Mm-hmm.
So finding that motion, finding the balance, and feeling what balance feels like instead of, trying to keep ourselves from falling on our face. The
Sure.
second aspect of Tai Chi walking and balance has to do with the vision, the visual. How do I fit into this world? Where is my place? How does this look from the inside looking out? What does balance look like? And then the third thing is the whole system that we have built into ourselves that is designed for balance. The inner ear and the tubes with the fluid,
Yeah,
and
like
it's kind of, it's, yeah, exactly. And it's kind of like our inner level. And so as we Tai Chi walk, as we move, we're actually training that level that is in our head, about balance. And then the fourth thing is the bringing it all together, the experience, feeling our weight, feeling our balance, feeling it move first from one side to the other, training the visual so that we know what the level horizon looks like,
Mm-hmm.
training the inner bubble so that we sense what that feels like. And so the simple act of Tai Chi walking is something that we can take from the dojo, from the practice area out into our lives, where now we can slow down a bit. And we can take that and we can now put that into practice in order to maintain our balance. And one of the biggest issues that we're dealing with in this country, particularly as people age, is balance, you know, and the strength. Oh, and there's one other aspect that I didn't mention in terms of that balance, and it's the actual strength that we develop as we Tai Chi walk. So we're making ourselves stronger little by little. We're sinking into our knees. We're bending our knees. We're getting as low to the ground as we're comfortable. And in addition to all of that sensory feeling and training that we're doing, we're actually strengthening and teaching muscle memory. What does balance feel like? So for me, that's one of the best examples of how we can take what we practice in the dojo out into the real world, and it's a big part of our lives.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love how you've brilliantly laid out the secret of Tai Chi. You're learning all this stuff, and all you're doing is walking.
Yeah, there's a lot we take for granted, Marcus. There's a lot we take for granted, and that's another thing. You know, Tai Chi slows us down. You know, it slows us back down. The slow, intentful movements that we make, the long, deep inhales, the slow exhales. It's just slowing us all down so that all of these things, whether it's walking, excuse me, there. Sorry about that.
One of the live streams.
The world continues. We're in here, you know, just talking about this, that, and the other, exploring the world and the universe and Tai Chi and how we fit in that. And guess what? The world is still going on.
That's right.
But yeah, that slowing down is so important. One of the things that I like about slowing down is comparing moving through the world in an automobile, on a bicycle, and on foot. Yeah. And if you observe, when you're in each one of those, the picture of the world and what it is that we absorb changes. Yep. In each one of those conditions. When we're moving in a car, we're taking in the big picture. You know, we're seeing the highlights, the billboards, the mountains, the trees, you know, the expanse of the universe. When we're on a bicycle, all of a sudden, boy, we can notice the creek and that there's a ripple in the creek. We can hear the birds. We can feel the wind, you know, and so the level of the observation changes. And then when we get off the bike and we walk, wow. I mean, not only are we close to things, you know, we can actually see the bubbles in the stream, not just the ripple. We can observe the bird. You know, we can discern that this bird makes this sound and that bird makes that sound. We can feel the breeze more because the breeze is brushing past us instead of us brushing past the breeze, like we're on a bicycle.
Yep.
And then the other great thing about that mode of moving is that we can stop. You know, it's hard to stop in a car and observe something, next to impossible. It's difficult on a bicycle, you know, to slow things down. But when you're on foot, you can stop. And now all of a sudden you can focus in on one thing, on one aspect, and give that some attention instead of being in this, you know, broad brush, Jackson Pollock type of cacophony, you know, that the world sometimes looks like. Or Christo. I don't know if you heard, but Christo passed away just a couple of days ago. And yeah. And if you remember, this guy would make these grandiose art pieces in the landscape, you know, with curtains on the and so on, you know, so that big broad brush. and then bringing that down, focusing it into the fine brush strokes of a Renaissance artist.
Oh, that's a shame. Well, the nice thing about being an artist is that you go on after you. So good for him. he's a loss, but his works are not lost. And that is very good. Awesome, awesome. Well, unfortunately, we are here. We are at the end of our time in the Chi-Cast. So, Wilson, tell everybody where they can find you, and for the audience, you're going to want to listen to this.
Right. So I've decided to use the label of Tai Chi Guy in Colorado. So that's pretty much how you find me. My email is Tai Chi Guy, one word, .co for Colorado @gmail.com. I'm also located on Facebook, and it's @taichiguy.co. On Twitter, a little different. I converted an old Twitter account. I may have to open a new one, but right now I'm @Wilson Araby. No dots, just one word, Wilson Araby, and Araby is spelled Arabie. On YouTube, I'm Tai Chi Guy Colorado, so
Nice.
easy enough to find.
I love that name.
And on Meetup, I actually set up my Meetup group before I started using Tai Chi Guy Colorado, and my Meetup group is Denver West Tai Chi Meetup.
Very nice.
So those are all ways where people can locate me. I'm just beginning to develop a library of videos, and what I love teaching Tai Chi, but I also love teaching Qigong. Qigong is the mother of Tai Chi. Tai Chi is the mother of all martial arts. And so I like to go back up that chain. I'm also a yoga practitioner. I love yoga. My wife is a yoga instructor, and we teach something called balanced healing movement. Last February for Valentine's Day, we had a partners yoga Tai Chi workshop, and it was wonderful. We had people discovering the benefits, of both Tai Chi and yoga, and mixing those together. But at the end of the day, it's all about just straightening out this energy that's inside of us, unblocking the energy channels, allowing the stagnant energy to flow away, to release, to be expelled from our bodies. And, my classes are pretty simple. We breathe and we move.
That is a fantastic mic drop. You're second of the day. Thank you so much, Wilson, for hanging out with us here on the Chi-Cast today. Will definitely have you back for a nice long segment where you and I can shoot the something.
Yeah, maybe next time we'll plan it.
There you go. We have no plan. We just jump in the river and let it take us where it takes us. As long as you're going downstream, you're getting where you need to go.
Exactly. Just keep moving and breathing. Keep
That's
moving and breathing.
All right, brother. You have an amazing rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon. Little health, happiness, harmony to you that way. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Wilson Araby from Denver, Colorado, out there in the Rocky Mountains doing the Tai Chi thing for Tai Chi Fit International, as well as the entire Tai Chi family. Wilson is such a great guy. I absolutely have enjoyed working with him. We'll definitely have Wilson back on the show at a later time. And that pretty much wraps everything up. I got to get into some meetings and talk with DDR and everybody else. And we've gone way over time. That was my concession to Wilson. He was running a little bit behind, but no biggies. If you want to learn more, go to taijifit.net. You could check out our Flow subscription or become an instructor and really get that deep nitty gritty that Wilson was talking about. Cicero said, I teach to learn. So that may be for you and starting your own business or at least supplementing your income. It could be something as simple as that, or maybe just getting a deeper look at what you're doing. You can find me. I'm all over the place at TaiChiFit.net, but I'm also at Tai Chi with Marcus, Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and YouTube. You could work out with me. You can see the snippets of the Cheat Cast and all sorts of fun stuff. Anywhere you find TCWM or TaiChiFit.net. And I look forward to seeing you in class. Till then, I wish you health, happiness, and harmony. Till I see you again. Have a great day. Stay home, stay safe, and take care.